Yeah, I'm Carlin and I'm chair of the Drug Education Forum.
Thank you. Eric, do you think there needs to be a new direction for drugs education?
I think it needs to be given more priority and we need to pay far more attention to how we deliver it well. I think we're quite clear that young people need it, we're quite clear that they want it, we're clear that parents want it and parents need it, but the standard of delivery we think is inconsistent, and so it's a really good thing that the government has decided to make it a statutory subject, and we've been campaigning for that in the Drug Education Forum for many years.
Do you think young people want more and different drugs education from what there is at the moment?
The problem is I don't think we know exactly what's being delivered because it hasn't been a statutory subject, so it hasn't been high on the agenda or the priority for schools. We've now got an opportunity to improve that situation, to build in more evaluation of what's actually going on the ground so that we can dump the things that are not going to be effective, like scare tactics, and we can instead concentrate on what's going to be effective in influencing young people's knowledge, skills and attitudes and ultimately their behaviour.
I mean, I can remember the strongest drugs education message I got when I was younger was just say no. I mean, clearly that's not something that's going to work for today's kind of YouTube generation. How do we need to sort of change the way we deliver messages as well as their content?
It's a difficult one. I think we have to be clear that that we're not operating in a moral vacuum altogether. So young people do need to understand what our society is saying is acceptable and not acceptable. Having said that, we have to be aware that drugs, they are operating in a world where drugs are all around. So we have to accept that while we would prefer young people not to be using drugs, some young people are. Some young people are going to get into difficulties with drugs, and we need to be finding ways of identifying those vulnerable young people as early as possible so we can intervene so that even if they do get into difficulties, we can try to prevent them from becoming really serious.
Do you think there's a misconception about the scale of the problem of youngsters getting into real difficulties?
Well, I think it's quite clear that most young people don't use drugs, and I think that the media in particular have a very important responsibility to get that message across. I think when we're always hearing that young people are out mugging old ladies or committing crimes against people or getting involved in drugs or alcohol situations, you can get the idea that that's all that most young people do. And it's not true. Most young people are actually very positive, creative. They want to put something into their society, they want to be part of their society, and we need to get those messages across so you get the idea that actually being a decent citizen makes you more like other young people, not less.
And do you think there needs to be more kind of joint working between schools, parents, voluntary organisations to really change drugs education?
Absolutely, it has to be a partnership. It's not the school's responsibility on their own. It's not youth workers' responsibility on their own. It's certainly not the police's responsibility. I think the starting point, though, which the government is now saying, is that the primary responsibility does rest with parents or carers for children. All the other services are there to support parents in caring for their children. It has to be a partnership though. Young people will come into contact with drugs or drug situations in all aspects of their life. So whether it's about the retailer who's selling alcohol to underage kids, whether it's about the police, involving the police in appropriate ways, or supporting youth workers so that they can actually be a bit less formal than teachers in schools in terms of supporting young people. There needs to be a complete kind of coordinated action on this, and it needs to be dealing not only with prevention but also with helping people get support if they are getting into difficulties.
Do you think there's perhaps a misconception about the numbers of young people who are very, very badly affected or very deeply involved in drugs?
I think we have to be worried about even a minority of young people if they are becoming involved with illegal drugs. What's clear is that alcohol is more of a problem for young people than illegal drugs are, but it could be a gateway into other potentially more serious drug use. Having said that, we need to get across very clearly the messages that most young people do not use drugs. So you're a normal young person if you don't.
That's great, thank you very much.
Okay.